Hi, my name is Michael Tyburski, and I directed and co-wrote The Sound of Silence.
Field test, Central Park, G major.
Playtime, Jacques Tati was, I think, one of my favorite films. I mean, it's visually compelling. It's shot in 70 millimeter. It's kind of like a must-see, but it's also essentially, he uses a lot of, like most of his work, a lot of silent film techniques.
Table 6.
It's not heavy relying on dialogue. It's more just almost kind of an avant-garde approach to sound where, again, everything is heightened, and because you're dialing in on very specific sounds in a very kind of visually appealing canvas. And he was also very aware of kind of manipulating the audience from where sounds are coming from in a theater. He was playing around with stereo sound at the time, and the idea that we can manipulate an audience or convince an audience where they need to look at a certain moment. He was really playful with his use of sound, which is always a good reference point. When I think about movies that have great sound design, I always think of Coppola's collaboration with Walter Murch. And the most famous instant, I think, of using sound as metaphor when you look at films like The Godfather, where the Al Pacino character is about to decide if he's going to murder somebody in an Italian restaurant. The idea that what you're hearing on the soundtrack is not going on in that room. It's separating. You're hearing the subway cars on the tracks outside as the camera really pushes in on his face. And you really kind of, another example of getting to understand the mental state of that character through sound that is completely disconnected from the visuals. Roma was the first film that I actually got to hear in Dolby Atmos, and we knew we were going to be mixing in that technology, and I really didn't know it outside of big blockbusters and movies with spaceships, but to see it in a very kind of grounded human drama and the use of it in a subtle way but organic was really kind of enlightening to what you can do with this very immersive technology just inside a room, inside a house with a few people talking. And that was the movie that kind of really turned me on to Atmos. We actually submitted the screenplay before we made the movie. It was through the San Francisco Film Society, SF Film. They were working with Dolby specifically and wanting to give a grant to a film. When we sent them the script, it really resonated with Dolby, and I think they saw kind of a kindred spirit. And the beginnings of Dolby, starts with Ray Dolby, who was essentially kind of like an audiophile and a tinkerer and a tuning lab of sorts. I like to think that there is that parallel in our character, kind of just serendipitously with what we were doing with the film and what we wanted to communicate. Usually by the time you're at the sound mix, you've spent all your money on production. So it was really nice on a very small independent movie, knowing that we had that safety. We knew we were going to get to mix it in this very luxurious sound technology and have an appropriate amount of time to really experiment. Atmos is short for atmosphere. So it's dozens and dozens of speakers, and it's the idea that you're having the same sonic experience as anybody else in the theater is one thing. For me, in the mixing theater, they have a visual monitor that has kind of like these, they look like yellow ping pong balls, and they represent kind of where the sound is coming from in the three-dimensional room. And you can pinpoint not necessarily a specific speaker, but kind of a quadrant of a room that you want something to come out of, but also how you want it to move within that theater. So we have a scene that has a player piano in it kind of running diegetically in the room for most of the scene. And this was a space kind of with old reflective ceilings. The sound is going to bounce off the ceiling and then come down on someone in the room. So we did that in the theater where in the Atmos mix, we quite literally put the piano music on the ceiling. So it's coming from above you, which is actually how it would sound realistically in a room. I understand that most people will unfortunately not get to hear the movie in Atmos. It's a limited technology, at least right now, of how you can see work like that. But it also folds down into a 5.1 mix kind of seamlessly. Fortunately, 5.1 is also very good and I think still sounds incredible.